Donald Trump's administration can be defined by a couple of C words, mainly corruption, criminality, and cruelty. And it is those last two that have really stood out lately with Donald Trump's illegal and immoral mass deportation plan. Of course, with Kilmar Abrego Garcia, a lawful permanent resident who was deported to a torture prison in El Salvador. That is the point, though. Donald Trump wants to be cruel. Donald Trump wants to intimidate, and his latest move reveals exactly that. And it was called out by not just Rachel Maddow, but Jamie Raskin as well in a brutal takedown that has Donald Trump panicking. We're going to cover it all, but before we do, if I could quickly ask you to leave a like on this video, and if you haven't already and you enjoy our channel, to hit that subscribe button. It goes a long way, and it really does mean a lot to me. Now, Rachel Maddow and Jamie Raskin called out a lot of Donald Trump's crimes, but the one that I want to start with before we get into this clip will maybe be the most disturbing you see. Judge says 2-year-old citizen appears to have been deported with no meaningful process. The girl was deported Friday with her mother to Honduras despite her father's efforts to keep her in the United States. A federal judge is raising alarms that the Trump administration deported a 2-year-old U.S. citizen to Honduras with no meaningful process, even as the child's father was frantically petitioning the courts to keep her in the country. U.S. District Judge Terry Doughty, a Trump appointee, said the child, identified in court papers by the initials VML, appeared to have been released in Honduras earlier Friday, along with her Honduran-born mother and sister, who have been detained by immigration officials earlier this week.
This was Maryland Congressman Jamie Raskin today. He said, every American should be deeply troubled by this massive escalation. This is an unmistakable descent further into authoritarian chaos. Joining us now is Congressman Raskin of Maryland. He's the top Democrat on the Judiciary Committee. Sir, thank you so much for being here. I know it's a really busy time.
Delighted to be with you, Rachel.
Let me ask you if any of the way that I explained that sort of seems the wrong way around to you, or if it seems like I'm putting the emphasis in the wrong place. It seems to me that Trump having a judge arrested is a reckless and desperate move. It seems to me like, yes, there are connections to previous flashpoints and tensions that Trump has raised in even his first term by trying to put federal immigration agents into state courts. But to me, this mostly just seems crazy.
Well, I regard it very much within the prism of what we've been dealing with over the last month, which is an intense assault on judicial independence. They have been disobeying federal court orders systematically. They have incurred criminal contempt findings in the courtroom of Judge Boasberg, a conservative Republican judge. They have been demanding the impeachment of judges who rule against the lawlessness of the Trump administration. There are now more than 90 preliminary injunctions and temporary restraining orders against the chaos that's been unleashed on the country by the Trump administration. And now they're arresting judges. And the first felony criminal charge brought against Judge Hannah Dugan in Wisconsin is interfering with a legal proceeding, which is essentially what they've been doing all along. What Judge Boasberg is about to hold them in criminal contempt for, and has found that there is probable cause for criminal contempt, is that they deliberately ignored and defied his order not to take off in those airplanes headed for El Salvador and not turning the airplanes around. So on the logic of this arrest of Judge Dugan, all of the people in the Trump administration who participated in defying that order by Judge Boasberg themselves could be arrested for interfering with a legal proceeding and perhaps other criminal charges like kidnapping, as you were suggesting before.
You have said that the independence of the judiciary has to be defended. You said we must do whatever we can to defend the independent judiciary in America. Obviously, there's this individual case of this judge. There's also potentially the intimidation factor towards all judges, right? That this has an effect on trying to scare and intimidate judges into not ruling against Trump or otherwise acceding to Trump and the Trump administration's demands. When you say we must do whatever we can to defend the independent judiciary in America, what do you think that we should do? We've seen people instantly and spontaneously react by going to the courthouses, by going to the streets to protest. Do you think that matters, and what else do you think could?
Well, absolutely. I mean, everybody who aspires and attains to public office in America, regardless of which branch they're in, is just a servant of the people, and the people need to manifest their outrage about these assaults on judicial independence. The first branch of government, the legislative branch, Congress, must do the same thing. We must reject all of these attacks on individual judges, some of which have led online to violent threats and death threats. There was a bomb threat made against Justice Amy Coney Barrett's sister. And there have been lots of threats made against judges, but we've got to defend them against that, and we've got to defend them against impeachment. There have only been 15 federal judges impeached in our entire history, always for corruption charges like bribery or tax evasion, never because somebody in the government disagrees with the content of their opinion. As Chief Justice Roberts said just a few weeks ago, the proper response to disagreement with district court's opinion is to appeal the opinion, not to impeach the judge. So there's this constant vilification and demonizing of the judges that we've got to turn around. And obviously, arresting a county court judge in Wisconsin is a dramatic escalation of these tactics.
A dramatic escalation, and one I think that will escalate the kind of response that they get as well. I think that it was a shock to the system, I think, when people saw those headlines today. That's why people got out in the streets. I mentioned that people went out and protested in Milwaukee outside the courthouse today. People went out to other federal buildings and other federal courthouses, including Minneapolis today, to protest. I'm not sure that they recognize they've bitten off more than they can chew here. But we shall see. Congressman Jamie Raskin, Democrat of Maryland. Yeah, sorry, go ahead, sir.
I was just going to say the country is rediscovering the two most beautiful words in the English language, due process, because that's what separates us from being a free society with real rights from becoming a dictatorship.
It is clear that the intention behind everything happening in this administration relating to Donald Trump's illegal mass deportation plan is around intimidation. That is their goal. We saw and reported on in the first couple weeks of Donald Trump's administration that the mass deportation plan, in terms of raw numbers, was not going the way that they wanted it to. It was failing. And so Donald Trump and Stephen Miller and Tom Homan decided, if we can't do it on the numbers, we're going to make these gross, disgusting spectacles, because they are gross, disgusting people. And that has really been what this is all about. Donald Trump wanted to do that, not only because he thought it would be beneficial to him, but because he thought that, and it has been the case, Democrats would not speak out if he was breaking the law on issues around immigration. And to some extent, that's been the case. We've seen anonymous Democrats say that this is a distraction and we should move on. We've seen Gavin Newsom say it publicly. But fortunately, we have Democrats like Senator Van Hollen or Robert Garcia, Maxwell Frost, Yasmin Ansari, who traveled to El Salvador and are telling the story of the disgusting effort happening in this Trump administration. And now they are going after judges, unsurprisingly, because they continue to suffer legal losses every day. And so no matter if it's the Supreme Court or a district court, Donald Trump wants to intimidate everyone to fall in line, which makes it that much more important that we speak out, which is exactly what we are seeing from Senator Chris Murphy and Maxwell Frost all across America, and they were talking about that right here.
Do you think the polling in politics matters for your colleagues who are going to have to do the voting?
Yes, of course it does. Right? The worst thing that they are contemplating doing, probably the most unpopular thing they are contemplating doing, is this budget bill in which they are talking about $1 trillion of cuts to Medicaid. That's just throwing people off of their health care insurance overnight in order to fund $1 trillion of tax cuts for the richest 1%. That's deeply unpopular. And what we saw in 2017, Chris, is that everybody thought they were going to pass the repeal of Obamacare, but they didn't. They didn't because they had really slim margins in the House and the Senate, just as slim as they have now. And we were able to throw enough sand in the gears, mobilize people nationally just enough so that we defeated that measure. But the stink of that effort support to repeal Obamacare still stuck with people. That was why they lost the midterms. And so politically, I mean, we should root for them not to get away with this because, if we stop the Medicaid cuts, it'll help a lot of people. But it's not as if the voters will excuse them for trying to do it, even if they don't get away with it. So, yes, we're here in North Carolina because there are a couple swing votes here in the Senate and in the House that might save a whole bunch of lives if they do the right thing when this bill to cut Medicaid and fund tax cuts for billionaires comes before the House and the Senate.
Yeah, Tom Tillis, your colleague in the Senate, is in cycle, meaning he's up for re-election in 2026. That is a state that Democrats just won statewide offices in this last election, even as Trump was being elected. And Congressman Frost, those margins are very slim in the House. Up until now, it seems that the sort of combination of Trump, Musk, and their kind of discipline approach, Musk is going to come in and primary you, drop $20 million on your head if you cross him. Like, all that has kept them in line so far. And I wonder whether you think any of that starts to erode or they're still pretty tightly together.
No, we're starting to see some of it erode, and it has to do, I think, a lot with the people power we're seeing, a lot of the events we're doing, a lot of our other colleagues are doing across the country, and amping up that pressure. About a week ago, 12 Republicans sent a letter to Mike Johnson saying we can't vote yes on a budget that has massive cuts to Medicaid. I promise you they would have not sent that letter if it wasn't for activists, organizers, citizens going to these town halls, making sure they hear from them, the phone calls, things like what we're doing. All of this adds up and puts pressure on these people. And I think, honestly, the Wisconsin Supreme Court race, I think, showed that you can put all this money in, which is horrible. I mean, we need to end Citizens United. One billionaire shouldn't be able to put unlimited amounts of money into an election. But he can put $20 million in a Supreme Court race, and he can't buy it because the power of the people is more powerful than that amount of money that he wanted to put in there. And I think, honestly, that race is showing a lot of these Republicans that maybe I don't have to be as scared of Elon Musk and Donald Trump as I thought I had to be. But we can't completely rest on my Republican colleagues find the courage to do the right thing, and that's why we're out here and we're mobilizing the people.
Now is the time, more than ever, to be loud. And I am so proud of my congressman and a senator that we have had on this show a few times, Senator Murphy, who are speaking out, who are calling out this administration. Maxwell Frost made the very important point at that rally that they were talking about, that we are not a minority party. We have the public support of a majority of Americans. What we are is an opposition party for now. And that means we have to oppose all the time. And that's what we're going to be doing on this show. And if you want to support that, as always, you can hit that subscribe button, leave a like on this video. And if you stuck around at the end, you can drop a blue heart in the comments. And until next time, I'll see you soon.